Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, welcome to ActiveRain University. My name is Bob Stewart. We're going to talk about some blogging blueprints for local events and local businesses. We're here to learn a little bit about, how do we write in the most efficient manner for our local events or the local businesses that we might be wanting to highlight in our blog. And I think there's two main reasons, and one would be to just get web traffic, okay? These types of posts, and I'm going to show you here in a second, these types of posts can generate an amazing amount of traffic, but the real reason that we're getting traffic like this, because these aren't people that are necessarily interested in buying or selling real estate with us today, right? I think the main reason we write these types of posts is for the exposure that they can get us, okay? So I want to take you guys in and show you just what I think is one of the best kind of large examples of this sort of thing in play. And this is from the fireworks from last year, okay? So we're looking at the 4th of July fireworks. We're looking at a time frame here that's about 45 days, kind of that month of June leading up, and then the few days after the 4th of July. And we can see that 75,000 visitors landed on ActiveRain who were looking for information about their local fireworks events that were going on. And I want to highlight one person in particular here, or one area. We've got Raleigh, then we've got Cary, North Carolina, and we see Raleigh fireworks down here. And this lady, I'm going to show you her posts here in a second. She got 16 or 17,000 views in a pretty short amount of time to her blog. And I want you to notice right here the average visit duration. So these people were spending an average of 38 seconds, and for the Cary post it was 42 seconds, and for this other Raleigh post it was 35 seconds. So they were spending an average, let's say 35 seconds per visitor on her blogs. And as we go here and we look at kind of the search queries that were done, we see her post coming up here in the 3rd position, and those will fluctuate. She may have been in the 1st or 2nd positions at some of those points. Here her Cary fireworks is coming up in the 3rd position. Here's the post itself. Okay, so she's got the good basic information in here that you might want. We're going to talk in a minute about what some of that kind of local events information is. But this is the part for me that's kind of the why we're here. All right, when we go back and we look at the back of her statistics on her blog, and we can all get there by going to our My Home page, right, top right-hand corner, My Home here, and then clicking on traffic. And so we're looking at the traffic here for Amy's blog. We see this cumulative effect. And so here's 2, 4, 6 different types of local event posts that she wrote, and we can see what, 5, 7, 10, 13, 4, there's about 14,000 clicks. This is the column that we're really interested in, clicks. And that means that this URL was loaded in somebody's browser, and this is the one for Cary. So this one got 2,400 clicks, okay? But in cumulative, she had about 14,000 clicks that came to her blog. And again, remember, these clicks spent an average of 30 seconds on her blog post. So she essentially got 14,000 kind of 30-second commercials in front of who, right? I think the biggest thing about local events and local businesses are the people that are searching for these sorts of things are locals, okay? So in Amy's particular case here, she was able to get about 14,000 30-second just exposures to locals in her market. We see a similar thing, and this is just some traffic that I'm looking at from a gentleman who had written about a bunch of different local businesses. And so in here he wrote about the best pizzeria or Italian restaurant in Port Richey, and he got 1,900. And then we talks about this particular restaurant, the Pasco County's only Gulf Front restaurant, for 1,900 clicks. And we see down here when he writes about the tasty ice cream treats place, 2,100 clicks, and the best bagel shop, 1,700 clicks. And so you can see how the cumulative effect of these sorts of blogs, either local businesses or local events, can really have a dramatic impact on our business. And again, as we realize that these people are spending an average of 30 seconds, we're essentially getting commercials to people that are local to our market, and it's just getting us some really great exposure. So that's why we're here. Okay? This stuff, I don't believe this to be rocket science by any measure, and the templates that I'm going to share with you, and as we walk through these, they are not necessarily, I don't think anybody's going to walk away and say, I can't do this. Okay, I would hope that all of us are going to be able to do this. Now, I don't want you to fall asleep on me, okay? And the reason I say that is twofold. One, at the end of the call, and there's about 500 of you guys here on the call. At the end of the call, for the about 60 of you that are not currently rainmakers, if you're not currently a rainmaker, I'm going to give you a special promo code at the end of the call. It'll get you your first 2 months to demo a rainmaker account for $1, okay? Because if you've been listening to my SEO classes or taking the boot camp or doing these blogging blueprint classes with us, and you're not upgrading your account, I want to give you a real special offer to do that. Okay, again, most of you guys are already rainmakers, so that's not going to apply to you, but if you're not, we'll give you a special promo to get started. I'm also at the end going to share with you, I think, a couple of places on your blog where I see a lot of people kind of missing certain things, or we're not taking full advantage of the opportunity to turn this exposure potentially into a lead or somebody that's able to connect with our real estate business. So don't fall asleep on me. Again, I don't think these templates are really groundbreaking in any way, other than it gives you a real succinct way to write about local businesses or local events. So the first thing we're going to start with here is going to be the local businesses. And again, you'll get this template. We also have some demo posts. I actually have this post up live, so you can go in and look at the posts themselves. So here's the kind of the anatomy of the local business post, and we're going to go through each section of this local business post right now. So the first thing is going to be the title. Okay, so the title of our blog post is going to be, what becomes the page title. It's going to be the first thing that search engine is looking at when they're deciding whether or not they want to rank our post. It's essentially us telling the search engine, this is what our blog post is about. So the title becomes ultra important. And in my thing here, I've got local business demo, but essentially my title would be the Acme Barbershop. Now I want to include the company name. That part's pretty obvious, and I want that to be the first thing that I include in there if I'm writing about a local business. Okay. The next part of the title is I want to have something in there for which the people that I'm writing about may be excited to rank for. So in this case, this is actually the barbershop on Capitol Hill in Seattle where I go to get my haircut. I'm going to kind of augment the company name portion of my title with something they might be excited to rank for. So I'm going to do Best Men's Haircut in Seattle. Okay? I want to be able to, because I'm going to go in and, Ian's the guy that cuts my hair, and I'm going to talk to Ian when I'm in there and say, Ian, I'm writing a blog post about Acme Barbershop, and I realize you guys have a website, but, my blog ranks pretty well. I may be able to get this thing on the first page for just the name of your company, but I'm going to get it on there for the Best Men's Haircut in Seattle. Okay? So that's where I look at my title. Now, in the first kind of portion of my blog post, I'm then going to repeat or restate that title. So Acme Barbershop, Best Haircut in Seattle. Pretty simple. Okay? I think when we start to look at local events and like the Bite of Seattle, and if you're writing about local businesses that have really good web coverage or exposure, right, they're being reviewed on Yelp, and they're being, that second portion, that part that is something that they might be excited to rank for, that's the part that you really got to kind of put your thinking caps on, right? So in my case, best haircut or best men's haircut in Seattle. So the second part is going to be the general information, and there's, we have a lot of kind of longtime ActiveRain members that join us for these calls, and you guys have written these types of posts before, and you guys realize that when you write these types of posts, people do actually call you or they email you with questions about it, and a lot of those questions are kind of based on that general set of information, right? So if I'm writing about the local barbershop, I'm not, it's not beyond the scope of possibility that I'm going to get a phone call that says, hey, what time is this place open? Or how much does how much does it cost? And some of these people don't even realize that you're not actually like the proprietor of the business, right? They're just calling to get the information. So we want that first portion to be that general information, the who, what, when, where, whys. And this is going to vary from business to business, right? For my particular business, right, how much does a haircut cost, right? That's something I'm going to want to get in there. Where is it located? What are the hours? You know, what are they providing? Okay, I've got a link in there, and when you're writing a local business post like this, it's important somewhere in the post that you get a link back to the company's website. And so in my case, right there in that cost line, I've got a link back that goes back for you to see a full list of Acme Barbershop prices, right? Then I'm going to get some contact information in there. And again, in my case, Ian's the guy that cuts my hair. I'm doing this to benefit Ian, okay? I want people to know the best men's haircut in Seattle. Ian's my guy, so I'm going to leave his name as the contact, and I'm going to leave a phone number in there. Now, again, this kind of general information, I think it's best left in just those. This isn't really bullets, but it's real easy for somebody to get that basic set of information up front. The next portion as we move on would be a clearly stated subheader. So right below my general information, and you can see it right there below, the specializing in men's haircuts on Capitol Hill, I'm going to use the template or the blog post that I give you that you can actually copy has this formatting in it. But in order to get that sort of a look, what I do, I just highlighted the words specializing in men's haircut in Seattle, and I used on a Mac Command 2, which gave me an H2 header tag, or I believe on a PC it would be Control 2. So by highlighting and then hitting Command 2 or Control 2, we can get that kind of larger text, okay? It's just a clearly stated subheader. This is what you're getting at Acme Barbershop, right? They specialize in men's haircuts on Capitol Hill. And I'm going to give them my experience, and this is the part that makes your blog post about the business a little bit different than just the company's website, okay? In that first paragraph, I'm just giving them kind of, I mean, this is almost what you would expect to see on the website, right? They've been cutting hair since 2004, and it's mostly male staff, and but somewhere in that first paragraph or two, I want to give them my experience because this is a local business that I frequent, okay? So I'm going to let them know, Ian's the guy that cuts my hair, and I'm just going to give him what it's like, right? He's consistent. Every time I go in there, I get a good haircut. You know, I rarely have to wait. I can call ahead if I want to and make an appointment with him. I'm just giving them a basic set of experiences that somebody looking online for that best men's haircut, they know there's a real person out there that's been to this place, and I actually use it, right? Simple, right? Some of us, I mean, if this is a place that you frequent quite often, you may be able to pump out 3 or 4 or 5 paragraphs about how great this place is. Okay, so don't feel like it's only going to be 2 paragraphs, or you know, you can write as much as you want about a local business that you really like. But the key component there is share your experience with them. And then I'm going to always, when I write about a local business, give the reader a way and possibly a reason to connect with that business on social media. Okay, so most businesses these days have a Facebook business page, for instance, or maybe they're on Twitter, or maybe they have a Google profile or something of that nature. I'm going to find some way to allow that consumer to connect with that business outside of just sending them to the business's website. Okay, so in this case, I just at the bottom there, I include a link. You can also follow Acme Barbershop on Facebook. That's the way, right? Where they will occasionally share some special discounts. That's the reason. So Acme will get in there, and every once in a while they'll say, hey, come get your haircut this Friday, and we'll give you $5 off. Right? So they do these kind of special things, and we can't necessarily dictate for the local business them doing that, although you know, maybe we make a suggestion to them, hey, do you guys have your Facebook page set up? Are you doing anything creative on there to encourage people to connect with you, or to give them a reason to connect with your business on social media? So we want to give them a way, but somewhere in there we want to give them that reason. Here's why you would want to head over and connect with the Acme Barbershop on Facebook. So, a couple of things we learned about writing about local businesses. And again, I'm going to come back here. We'll come back to that slide in just one second. At the end, and Carrie will send these out to you guys. So here's the one we're going to look at next for the Buy to Seattle. Here's the post for the Acme Barbershop. Okay, that's what the post is going to end up looking like. And this is not, I mean, this literally took me about 10 or 15 minutes 2 days ago when I wrote this thing up. Okay, that's what it ends up looking like. The one thing I didn't mention is get that image in there. And I took this image from their website. Okay, I had my haircut a week ago with Ian. I let him know I was going to do this, and I said, hey, do you guys mind if I go on your website, grab one of the images from the site, use it in my blog post? And Ian said, heck no, have at it. So I grabbed the image from their website. Here's what you'll be able to do. You'll have the templates as kind of a guide to look at, but if you want to take this exact formatting and create a new blog post for yourself, here's all you would do. You would come in here and copy my blog post, right? Just highlight it, copy, and then you would head back to your blog, and you can do a new blog entry and just paste it right in there. So we've got the formatting held itself, so you don't have to worry about figuring out how to make this thing bigger, right? You would just come in here and replace whatever you wanted to say, right? You come in here and change this stuff around a little bit, but I've got that formatting in there so it's consistent for you guys, and you don't have to figure out how to lay this thing out so that it looks like I have mine looking here. So a couple of things we learned then from local businesses. We want to rank for something about the business, okay? And that's where I used best men's haircut in Seattle. So really think about getting that into your title. Think about that maybe potentially being part of that subheader that I used, right? Obviously, if I'm writing about this being the best men's haircut in Seattle, somewhere in the body of the content, I'm going to have impressed that upon people so that it all kind of comes together from a search engine optimization perspective. If you haven't taken our SEO class yet, we're actually starting that boot camp series again next Thursday. So you'll be able to get in there and learn a little bit more about SEO. We want to have a chance for them to connect to the business. And in my case, I used, leading them back to the business's Facebook page. And again, I gave them a reason why. Now, with these local business posts, I think you can use these as an opportunity to make a connection in your business. And here's what I mean by that. How do you kind of make that leap from writing about the local business to actually making a connection in your business? Now, you're going to get the traffic, you're going to get the exposure, but one of the things that I've never done, this is actually the first time I'd ever let Ian know that I blog, right? I mean, I kind of told him what I do, but I'm not a real estate agent, so I'm not, in your guys' shoes exactly. But if I'm going to write about a local business, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to let them know. I'm going to let them know about it, right? And a lot of people might assume that a local business owner is going to be a little bit skeptical if I just came to Ian and said, hey, Ian, I'm going to write a blog. I'm a real estate agent. I keep a blog. It's for information for people who either live in the area or move into the area, and I want to write about your barbershop. Sometimes people are going to think, oh, well, Ian might be like, okay, well, what do you want from me, right? And I don't necessarily want anything from Ian. I'm just sharing with him that I'm going to do it. And one of the ways I did that, I said, hey, I'm going to write a blog post about you. Do you mind if I take an image from your website? Another way I could do it is, hey, do you mind if I take a few pictures of the barbershop that I'm going to use in my blog? I'm a realtor, and I keep this blog for, to keep people up to date on the best places around the community. Then I'm going to do it. Okay, I'm going to go out there and do it. Now, if I can get my blog post to rank on the first page for best men's haircut in Seattle, right? Then when I come back, the next time I get my haircut, I'm going to revisit that with Ian. So I'm going to say I'm going to be sitting in the barbershop chair, and I'm going to say, oh, hey, Ian, by the way, did you see that now if you go to Google and you type in best men's haircut in Seattle, my blog post in the 3rd position with your name on there? Right? So I'm going to revisit it with him. And at that point, I'm going to take an opportunity to say, I am a real estate agent, Ian, and geez, you talk to a lot of people all day in your chair, buddy. I would love it if, if the next time somebody brings up buying or selling a house, if you would think to to possibly refer them to me. So I'm going to let them know about it. I'm going to go out and do it, and then I'm going to revisit it with that local business owner, right? A lot of us are walking into local businesses every day, and we never take the time to meet the owner, to ask about, who's running this place, to make that connection for our business. So this is one way that with local businesses in your area, you can, start to make connections with people. In real estate, we all know this, it's about making connections, right? How many connections can we make for our business? How many people can we have out there thinking about us when somebody they know is thinking about buying or selling real estate? All right, let's move on. So we're going to talk about local events. So again, here's kind of the full look at this post. This is the template that you will get. Again, we do have the post on the ActiveRain University blog, so if you want to go back and just copy the post out of there to be able to get the formatting exactly like I have it in the university post, you'll be able to do that as well. And here's what it looks like, local events. And as I mentioned up front, my favorite local event is the Bite of Seattle. This gets back to what I talked about in terms of the local business and how I'm not just gonna name the local business, I'm gonna say something about it, right? We want to give people something beyond what they'll find on the website, because especially with a big event like the Bite of Seattle, I'm probably not going to rank on the first page when somebody just searches Bite of Seattle. Okay, and in fact, the first website that comes up is going to be the Bite of Seattle website, right? So I need to give them something in my blog that they're not going to find on the website. And you'll see in here that I did Bite of Seattle 2013 Best Food Vendors. Okay, so the Bite of Seattle's website's not going to say, because they have 200 food vendors. They're not going to go in there and tell you, hey, here's the best ones, right? So my post needs to have something that will kind of separate it from all of the other content, especially that main website for the Bite of Seattle that might be out there. Now, here's the deal. That's not always the case, okay? Because if you have a small local event going on, a lot of us, especially when we're in smaller areas, there's not, massive media coverage or these sorts of things, you're going to be able to get your posts to rank on the first page just for the name of the event. But, in Seattle, where, we've got bloggers left and right, and we've got, the news coverage, and we've got all these things, I need to do something to kind of give them something beyond what they'll find on the website. So we're gonna go with the title. And in my title here for my demo, I didn't use Bite of Seattle Best Food Vendors, but in this case, that should be what I'm going with. The post has actually been updated, I believe, to reflect that. But again, it's title. Restate the title. I like to use the year in mind, because this would be a strategy that I'm going to come back in 2014 and I'm going to revisit. What events did I write about last year? I should probably write about those events again. And what we see is that as people go online, a lot of times they're using that year indicator, right? So I'm going to have Bite of Seattle 2013, and then again, if I wanted to really kind of focus it on some particular aspect of the event, something they're not going to find on the website, maybe that's insider tips. Why don't you guys in the question area right now, even if you're not familiar with the Bite of Seattle, it's just a big festival where you got a bunch of people that, a bunch of vendors that come in there and they got music and all these things. Give me some ideas of some things that people might be interested in or be searching for as it related to the Bite of Seattle. I'll give you two, okay? Best food vendors. Like, what's the best food at the Bite of Seattle? So Bite of Seattle 2013, what's the best food? Another one would be, where the heck do I park? If you've ever been to Seattle and down around the Seattle Center, parking is an issue. So I might write Bite of Seattle 2013, best places to park. Okay? You guys give me some examples of some things that you might think somebody would be out there searching for. Are there cooking displays? Is there, right, so here's a great one. Bite of Seattle 2013, things to do for the kids. Are there kids activities? Fun things for the kids, right? That's a great, Bite of Seattle 2013, where do I go to the bathroom? There's all these things, right, that we can get in there, the newest food trends, right? There's these different ways that we can kind of make our posts stand out when we're talking about an event that's on a big scale that a lot of people are going to be writing about. Okay, you guys, those are some good ideas in there, right? Entertainment, handicap facilities, organic vendors, right? These are all things that are very particular to the Bite of Seattle. Great idea. Promo codes, cooking demonstrations. I mean, yeah, you guys are just best food trucks. There's just all this information that we could kind of use to augment the title of our post. Again, we're going to hit them with the basic info, right? One thing about this basic info section, if you're writing about an event that has tickets, make sure it's really easy for them to figure out how to get the tickets. Okay, so in my case, it's a free admission, but had it not been free, I'm going to have a link on there heading back to, generally the main website for the event and how they would go about getting tickets. But again, the when, the hours, the where, the who to contact, okay, just the basic information. Again, we're going to get into a brief synopsis and then our experience. So the first paragraph, just, hey, this is the same thing you'd find on the website, right? It's giving you the breakdown, what this thing's about. Second paragraph, I'm going to give them a little bit of my experience. And again, I swear it was only one time that I had to get rolled out of the center house. But I'm going to let them know, here's the fun stuff. Here's what you're after. Here's where you go. I think this next part, when you're talking about an event, especially if it's an event that you've been to, you always learn something at these sort of events. And this insider tips section for a local event, I believe could be the reason that you have something in your post that's worthy of being shared. So, like I said, I go to the Bite of Seattle almost every year. I've been 5 years, I think, in the last 10. I love the Bite. But there's a few things I've learned over the years, okay? One of them is bring your own water, right? Nobody wants to pay $4 for a bottle of water, so I'm going to share with them some things. Bring cash, right? You're probably going to have to pay to park. I'm going to give them those things that you always think after you left the event, man, next year when I go to the event, this is what I'm going to do, right? Like, it's okay to bring a lawn chair. It's whatever it is about that event, bring your blanket because you can spread it out on the grass and take a break because you're going to be doing a lot of walking. These different events, they've always got something that, gosh, when you went there, the third or fourth time you've gone there, you're not quite the same guy that you were the first time you walked in all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, right? So those insider tips, this becomes a reason now that we could go out and share this thing on Facebook. Hey, you're going to the Bite of Seattle this weekend. Here's 4 insider tips. You don't want to miss these, right? This will make your experience much better. Again, here's going to be that post in its entirety. So you come back here to the ActiveRain University blog. Here's that post in its entirety. Here's an image that I have, and I actually got this image, and somebody's going to ask, well, what if I don't have an image for a particular event? What I did to get this image is I actually grabbed the image from the Creative Commons area of Flickr. This is a Creative Commons image that somebody's uploaded to Flickr, and they said, it's okay that you share this as long as you attribute it to me. And so I just went to Creative Commons images on Google. I found Flickr's Creative Commons images, this attribution license. So I went in here and I said, look, I want to see all the photos where somebody said, it's okay if you use the photo, you just have to link it and attribute it to me. And then I did Bite of Seattle. And you'll see the particular picture that I used is somewhere down here. Oh, there it is right here. So that's the picture that I ended up using. And then I just linked it back to this page. So here at the bottom, I've got image courtesy of Victoria and Reseda to link back to this image on Flickr. But here's the whole look of that post, right? So I've got general info, couple paragraphs about my experience and just what the festival's all about. I've got my insider tips down here at the bottom. Okay. I've got a link back to the main website for the Bite, in this case where I'm giving you a chance to check out all of the different vendors and food that will be available. So provide a reason to share it. This is the insider tips. This is the thing that makes that post worthy of being shared, not just by you, but potentially by somebody else. Because if you've got a bunch of friends on your Facebook page that end up going to the Buy to Seattle every year, and you write a good post that actually gives some really good reasons or good things that people should think about, like bringing their own water, bringing cash, right? Other people might potentially share that as well. Get the basics out fast. Again, if you've been doing these types of posts for a while, you've gotten the phone calls where somebody's like, well, what are the hours? What time is this place open? How do I get a hold of the event organizer, right? Get those basics out there, the top of the post, so they're real clear. And then you may also use these as an opportunity. When Chris and I were putting this together the other day, he was saying, you know, I don't know that with a local event like this that you're going to get a chance to like have an audience with the organizer like you would with like a proprietor of a local business. But in a smaller event, you may very well have that opportunity. I think one of the good ways to take advantage of that, or the good ways to kind of get a chance to speak with somebody, is to say, hey, I'm writing a blog post about your local event. Can you give me a couple of tips? You know, if somebody's never been to this event before, what's something that they need to know, right? So you may also use these local event posts as an opportunity. Maybe they're looking for volunteers, and that's something that you could write about in your post. But there's always an opportunity in there to kind of take that blog post and use it to make a connection with either a local business owner, a local event planner, something of that nature. All right, so I said at the end, we're going to talk about a couple of things. So hopefully you guys are all still awake. Wake up. Okay, so you're awake, I hope. Don't forget, you sell real estate. All right, and this particular class in the Blogging Blueprint series, the past ones that we did how to do a market report, how to do a local community blog, how to blog about your listing. Those are all very kind of directly related to your real estate business, okay? I realize that writing about local events and local businesses is not, but again, it gives us an opportunity to potentially make a connection, okay? It gives us a lot of potentially a lot of traffic, gives us good exposure, right? We saw Amy earlier who'd gotten, what, 14,000 30-second commercials, okay? But don't forget, at the end of the day, you sell real estate. So what are some of the things that we can do to make sure that if somebody lands on our post, they know we sell real estate? And I think probably the number one thing, and this holds true across any type of a blog post that you've written, is that right-hand column in your blog, okay? And you'll notice in mine, I've got a little widget from my IDX site that I have placed right there. So as they're reading this blog, right, what are the chances that somebody's even thinking, oh, I want to find a house? It's pretty stinking low, right? Pretty stinking low. But when you have 14,000 people that got exposed to your content like Amy did, right, is there a chance that one or two of those people might be thinking, you know what, I do want to start looking at some houses? Yeah, it's pretty low chance, but there's a chance. Okay, so we want to make sure that that right sidebar has something in it. It could just be links, okay? Let me bring us back out here and look at. So I've got my search widget in here where they can search for a home on Capitol Hill or Green Lake or wherever, right? I've also got some links that I included down here, like homes for sale in Seattle, homes for sale on Capitol Hill, homes for sale in Ballard, condos for sale in Seattle. So you can add or remove links to the sidebar of your blog by coming into this little area right here, okay? I embedded that widget, and again, that widget is something that I got from my website provider. I embedded that by coming up here and going to the blog settings area, right? And this is just a piece of code that my website provider gave me that included that widget. So now, once I post that in there, I come back to my blog, my widget's going to show up here on the right, okay? The next little piece that you really want to make sure that you are thinking about is this signature line. Okay, so I've got this, my basic contact information, my phone number. Apparently when Carrie and I got married, I took Carrie's last name. I got a little link in here if somebody's looking to buy or sell a home in Seattle. Okay, and then on my particular blog, I've got some some options for them to be able to connect with me out there on other areas of social media, right? So you really want to think about this sidebar. What do you have in this area, right? Because Amy had 14,000 people that landed here and were looking at this page. Then you want to think about this signature line, okay? These will be kind of the small little hooks that we can have out in the water for all of that traffic that we can potentially generate that relate to our real estate business. And again, the likelihood is pretty stinking small that somebody's going to find our blog about a local event and then become a lead on our website, but it's not zero. So we want to make sure that we have, these kind of more passive calls to action, because I'm not going to just throw a big link or a big button or a big image in the middle of this post that says, hey, find a house, right? That would defeat the kind of purpose of the blog, which would be to educate them about the Buy to Seattle. But I do want to make sure that I've got these other kind of calls to action around the content. Okay. So ready, set, right. For the 50 or so of you guys that have joined us here that are not currently Rainmakers, if you would like to try out a Rainmaker account for $1, I think it's actually $2. It's the first 2 months for $1 a month. You can go to arpromo.com/2 months. That'll come out in the email that we send out afterwards with the correct links to the templates and also the links back to these posts that I said that I've showed you guys, the kind of the full post where you can just copy and utilize the formatting that I've used.